Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the webinar Doing Business in Ethiopia. My name is Arne Doornbal. I work for the Netherlands African Business Council, and I'm the moderator of today's session. In general, and in NABC, we work with country specialists. Our country specialist for Ethiopia is actually Miss Hilde Duns. Unfortunately, she couldn't make it to be here in this webinar. So I will give the overview about NABC's activities in Ethiopia on her behalf. In fact, as NABC, what we do is really to link the Dutch private sector to business opportunities in Africa, but of course also to link African companies to the European market. And Ethiopia is one of the countries where we've been having more activities than in most other countries, I would say. This is going back for several decades. And especially the last couple of years, starting November 2015, we organized a big event about doing business in Ethiopia. We have been having several of them, including one in Amsterdam in 2017 with Dr. Arkebe in attendance. And then in May last year, there was the last EU-Ethiopia Business Forum, which we organized in Brussels on behalf of the European Commission's delegations to Addis Ababa. We had more than 150 companies together there in Brussels, and it was attended by the Commissioner of the Ethiopian Investment Commission, Mr. Abebe. This event also really played a role in promoting Ethiopia as a lucrative business destination. Once again, welcome to the webinar. We are very happy that we're joined by the ambassador of the Federal Republic of Ethiopia to the Netherlands, Mr. Million Samuel Gebre. Please, Mr. Ambassador, if you can start with your opening remarks.
Let me start by giving you a context of the COVID impact in Ethiopia. So the first case was reported on the 13th of March. And as of yesterday, we have 731 confirmed cases and 6 deaths. The government on April 8th has declared a state of emergency, which is expected to last for 5 months. The preventive measures include the closure of the borders. So there is an isolation of passengers coming to Ethiopia for 14 days, and also flight destinations of more than 80 has been suspended. But also for the socio-economic impact, the government also took some measures to mitigate the impact. So the removal of the restriction of floor prices for flour exports has been removed by the National Bank of Ethiopia, and the facilitation of the VAT tax returns has also been accelerated. This also helps the private business sectors to have ample cash, and there is also tax exemption for importation of products, especially products related to the curbing of the virus. Ethiopia also stood in solidarity with African countries. Ethiopian Airlines is the one airline that distributed, the medical equipment received from China to other African countries. Also, Ethiopia has been very vocal in the international community to stand for Africa and to let the international community not to leave Africa behind in mitigating this pandemic. But if we see the post-COVID relations between Ethiopia and Netherlands, we believe as Ethiopia we have a very good business relations with the Netherlands, and this pandemic, this COVID pandemic will somehow try to pause the existing relationship, it's not going to stop it. This difficult time could be taken as a time to, you know, think about it, to reflect, to see for other, to evaluate what has been doing so far and to see for more other opportunities for the future.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. And indeed, like you said, the relationship between the Netherlands and Ethiopia has been very strong, with very active ambassadors on both sides. Actually, we had the Dutch ambassador in Ethiopia was actually also very enthusiastic about joining this webinar, although he eventually had a meeting with Prime Minister Abiy, and of course that is was more important than being here today. But he has a very good representative to be with us today, which is who is Laurenske van den Heuvel. She is the Policy Officer Trade and Investment at the Dutch Embassy in Addis Ababa. Ms. van den Heuvel, welcome, and please tell us a bit more what the plans of the embassy are in the coming period. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Arne and NABC, to organize this webinar. And thank you, Ambassador Million, for a clear overview. At this moment, we see that Dutch managers are returning back to Ethiopia. There are still flights to Addis. So it is possible they only need to quarantine for 14 days in a hotel. But I think it's a positive sign that managers are going back and want to be at their company compounds. But we also see a country that took serious steps at a very early age, and that is working really hard to keep their economy running. And instead of a full lockdown, they decided to go for a state of emergency. And that enables, for instance, Ethiopian to keep on flying. So there is export, there is import, and Ethiopian has been very creative. They're focusing more on cargo, but they also offer alternative routes. Last week, for instance, we had more than 150 cows flown in by the Netherlands to Mekelle Airport. So this is something we would not think about that it would be possible, but it is possible. So that's that really speaks for Ethiopia.
Thank you very much, Ms. van den Heuvel. Indeed, as was already mentioned, there are a number of different organizations active in Ethiopia that do represent both the Dutch and the European private sector. One of them is the EU BFE, the European Union Business Forum in Ethiopia, which represents numerous companies, European companies, also Dutch companies in Ethiopia. So we now hear from Nahom Abraham, the Executive Director.
As you said, the EU Business Forum is an association of European investors operating in Ethiopia. That also includes, of course, the Ethiopia-Netherlands Business Association and French Business Association, as well as individual companies. As a result of the state of emergency, cancellation of employment contract has been suspended. So if the existing semi-lockdown continues, then it could eat into the capital of the company and threaten its existence. So there could be an issue. But there are also measures by the government that are actually helpful, that are being applied already. This include the tax relief, cancellation of tax arrears going back to 4 or 5 years, partial or full cancellation of tax arrears. Individual commercial banks have also slashed their interest rates. LC or letter of credit extension payments have been revoked in many banks. Customs fines have been moved or removed. So I mean, these all add into the potential quick recovery over the future. We believe, I think, this economic relief measure should be a bit more targeted, sector specific. to have a better impact. I'm sure the government is working towards this, and we are very happy, and we work closely with the Ethiopian Investment Commission in providing inputs from our investors in this exercise of actually the economic recovery exercise that's being in place. Also, another interesting outcome was that the investors, some 47% believe the companies would bounce back to normalcy within 4 to 6 months. So it's quite interesting, given the fact that at early instances the companies have had severe impact, loss of revenues, and so on and so forth. There is also positivity of bouncing back. So in total, almost 70% of companies believe there is potential for a full recovery within a year's time. As it stands, all the research in the economic area seem to indicate that. Also, you notice that there are some sectors which are not as much affected as others. For example, construction sector is more or less not affected. So also this would have a spillover effect on others as well. So not so much as it stands. So I mean, that's what the study says. So I think we can remain positive in that regard.
Okay, thank you very much for the clarification. That's good to hear. And indeed, now let's go to the companies itself. We have 2 Dutch entrepreneurs with us today. Both of them are actually also involved in the ENLBA, the Ethiopian Netherlands Business Association. Mr. Gerrit Ritmeester, he's actually a board member of the ENLBA. And he is the general manager of Crown Packaging and Plastics. Mr. Ritmeester, welcome. In the meanwhile, you can share perhaps your screen and show us a little bit how your company looks like.
Yeah, this is our manufacturing site in Bishoftu South, Uday Denkaka, a small city. It's located near the second exit from the expressway from Addis, 40 kilometers from Addis. We are now on this location for 3 years. The company is founded almost 10 years ago, and it was first settled in Dukem. And as I said, 3 years ago, we established here. And in this company, we have, with the green roof, you see our offices, and the gray building is our production plant, where we make plastic cups. We make plastic cups, for example, for 95% of all the dairy factories in Ethiopia. Almost all the cups with yogurt in the supermarkets you see are produced by Crown. 2 of them are imported, but we want to avoid that. They should become our customer. But we also make plastic cups for example, Heineken, the big beer brewery, Abyssinia also, and a lot of other customers. We make all various types of plastic cups. We do it in this factory with 70 employees, 70. We work in 3 shifts a day and 5 days a week. Yeah, and we're operating from here. We have an extrusion machine. We make our own sheet roll, and from this sheet roll, we produce our plastic cups. And if the customer wants it, we can print our or their cups with the design they will use.
That's good. That's good. Thank you. And how do you're still operating full capacity at the moment?
Yes, actually, for us, till now, it doesn't make a difference if this COVID is here or not in doing business. We are still running 100% our business, and even are increasing, because the fasting season is gone. In the fasting season, the consumption of milk and yogurt goes down. It's finished late April. we receive many orders, and yeah, we are doing quite good business. The only thing, the difference is in making the organization different for the social distancing, moving the staff to and from the company, this kind of things. In the canteen, instead of 8 people together shared on one table, we have now 3 people shared on one table. So in the end, it costs a little bit more, but still we produce 100%.
Okay, that's good to hear. Now, it's mentioned you've been in the country for 3 years, there being the general manager. How, if the people in Holland are listening and they're considering to start a business in Ethiopia, what would you advise them? Can you recommend it?
Yes, I for sure can recommend it. Although there are quite some challenges. You need to be good to prepared starting doing your business in Ethiopia, because it's a totally different context than in Holland. For example, the power supply. We have a lot of power ruptures. We are equipped with generators, but in this time, especially in the raining season, you have more use of your generators. So we use a lot of fuel consumption to keep our production running. You have to get, need to have a good knowledge of the tax regulations, of the directives. So my advice is also have good staff in your organization, financial managers, who knows about the tax regulations and how to deal with this kind of things to avoid problems. Because the tax regulations can be some challenging, and we know some examples of companies having difficulties with the tax department. And you need to not take this in account, but you need to prevent against this by having good knowledge of the tax regulations. And that's why you need to have good staff and also good knowledge about the directives, and maybe have also good network in the tax departments to share your knowledge together to avoid this kind of issues.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ritmeester. We still have a last speaker with us, also an entrepreneur, Mr. Bram van Loosbroek. He's the founder of Abyssinia Ballooning. Bram, if you can please unmute yourself, we can have a brief Q&A. Welcome.
Well, hello, thank you.
So, you are one of the most widely known Dutch companies in Ethiopia. I believe I've read many stories about you in the past. You're doing something very particular, but for the people who don't know you yet, what is Abyssinia Ballooning?
Yeah, it's quite simple. It's a hot air balloon company, and it's the first of Ethiopia. So we fly hot air balloons. We were supposed to fly a lot of tourists when we initially started, but now we are more like a leisure and recreation product for local Ethiopians, diaspora, and expats. And we fly with some tourists. So we organize early morning sunrise balloon flights.
I see. And as you can imagine, there are currently 0 tourists in Ethiopia. So how do you deal with that?
No, we don't deal with it because it's unable to deal with it. So I'm back in Holland since 2 months already. Our company and our team, of course, are still employed. But like the tourist sector and Ethiopian Airlines, we can maybe shift a little towards cargo. We are hit very hard. Business is down to 0. That's a problem.
Yes, and I can imagine. And it was already mentioned before, the Ethiopian government does not allow you to lay off your staff. So how many people do you have on your payroll who you still need to pay each month?
We have 10 people, so we are relatively a small company, but no matter the size, the impact of something is still small for the personal lives of our people and our company. So it's 10 people, consisting of salespeople, consisting of office management and compound cleaning, and 6 ground team members. So maybe it's nice to share my screen. Now let's say a little bit history of Abyssinia Ballooning. We started in 2012. And I need to focus a little bit, and then you can see, okay, how we think and acted before. We started in 2012, we're operational for 2 years, flying over Addis Ababa in the early morning with a branded balloon, as you see. That's a local bank who was branded the balloon at the time. And then, unfortunately, we had to stop for 2 years for that they revoked, the Ethiopian government revoked our license quite suddenly. That's in short our story. Then we went to lobby for 2 years to get it back and kept everybody employed at the time. Went crowdfunding in Holland to survive because we have a mother company, which is a balloon company in Holland who has 8 balloons flying around. So we went to lobby and we met a lot of good people also within the government. We really wanted to help us out, saying like, okay, we cannot give you a license and then stopping you for 2 years after you invested. So this was quite a bad story in terms of as an investment story.
It's very encouraging for others, I would say.
No, yeah, but you have to look at the angle of it. Ballooning was completely new. So what you get when you introduce new things, you get reluctance to new ideas, which is quite normal. However, also is one of the big challenges in Ethiopia. It is still within many departments very bureaucratic, and there's a lot of rules because of the rule giving. When I speak to many people within the government who are very smart, decisive, and visionary people, you hear about fantastic ideas. But what's changed, what is within the middle management of Ethiopian government agencies, you see problems there sometimes, and then you are really stopped. So within our members, because we have ENLBA, we have 60 members, you see these problems arising, and they always have been there. Now, at the current situation with COVID, more problems are there. But in my particular case, we don't make any money, so we'll go a long way to keep our team working, and we will also go to the utmost. Maybe we need a loan, like the tourist sector. We will need a loan or something to survive. But for us, it's a high impact.
Thanks again very much for your attention, and have a wonderful rest of the day.